great novel can change your life. Maybe you don't want to change your life, keep reading shitty novels. So why read great books? What even is a great book? I don't necessarily mean you should be working your way through the Western canon. A regular book will pass the time, at best be fairly entertaining and a fun diversion while you're on the airplane on the way to your vacation. And by book, I mean novel. There are great works of nonfiction, and strangely, I've been a voracious reader my entire life. Since I was a little kid, I was a freaky little kid that would just want to hang out at the library, but I was a reader of nonfiction. Even then, as a kid, I would read like the books about ancient Egypt with the big, those white books with the pictures of pyramids and cutaways and stuff like that. And I didn't really start reading fiction until maybe my early 30s. Like I was really late in the game. It was funny how I got into even reading fiction at all is that I read lots of science books. And at one point I was like, well, maybe I should read science fiction. So all those science fiction books that people usually read in their teens, I was reading when I was in my early 30s. Like, I read Dune, and it blew my mind. I worked my way through all of Philip K. Dick. I read The Three-Body Problem. I read lots of science fiction short story stuff. Read Ted Chiang. Read some Robert Silverberg. And I got into it. And then from there, I was like, hey, this fiction stuff ain't so bad. So then I decided to jump into heavy fiction. Life is too short to waste your time with mindless garbage consumption. Like, if I'm going to read a book, it better be a great book. And if I can kind of tell it's not going to be a great book early on, which I feel like I'm pretty good at that, then I'm done. I'm not one of those people that feels like I have to finish a book because I started a book. Like, I've been halfway through a very long novel and given up and been like, I get it. It's fine. I don't like wasting my time on, if I'm going to read a book, it better be the best book. If I'm going to watch a movie, it better be the fucking best movie. Why waste your precious time on this planet consuming mindless garbage? But then that opens up the question of, how do you know beforehand what's good and what's not? You kind of have to trust the critics and the lists of the greatest 100 books of all time or whatever. I understand why there's an aversion to that Western canon dead white guys thing. 100% I understand why. But I found it useful as a guide to kind of point me in the right direction. You just kind of have to start going down that road. And then you will find, if you're really hungry for good novels, eventually you'll find your way. There's a million lists of the greatest books of all time and all that stuff. And they can start you down the path. And then eventually you will discover people, like on YouTube, or wherever online, you will discover people that you're like, okay, I tried this book that they recommended and it was great. And I tried this other book and it was great too. So I think like we're on the same wavelength and I can kind of trust their judgment. I've learned that a great work of nonfiction can change what you think. It shifts the ideas around, puts new information in here. It can be done in a beautiful way, in a beautiful poetic way, talking about black holes and gravitational waves. A great work of nonfiction can shift what you think, change what you think, can really change you as a person. But I think only a great novel can change how you think and can change you on a deep molecular level. Like when I read Virginia Woolf to the Lighthouse for the first time, it changed the way I think. And there's something almost holy about it and unexplained, and there's almost a mystical aspect to it. And with a great novelist, you're inhabiting their mind, experiencing how they order their thoughts and parse this world around us. A great book can really stay with you for a long time, your whole life even. It shows you, oh, I can see reality in this way. I can see reality like Virginia Woolf sees reality. I can see reality like Toni Morrison sees reality, or whoever. The first time I read Saul Bellows' Herzog blew my mind. I didn't know a person could write that way, where everything is just laid out on the page, and some of it's third person, some of it's first person. It's poetic. It's difficult at times. The first time I read James Joyce, all of James Joyce, I'm a huge James Joyce nerd. it blew my mind apart. And you want to live in their brain. And almost like exercise, reading a great book, especially a difficult book, they don't have to be difficult. It's not synonymous that a great book is a difficult book. Sometimes they're not at all. Sometimes they sneak up on you. Sometimes they make you work for it. A great book, especially a difficult, great book that you really have to grapple with and pull apart and figure out the symbolism, and it's kind of uncomfortable. It's almost like lifting weights or something. It's like training. It's like weight training for your brain. Imagine tiny little arms coming out of your skull and lifting weights. And as opposed to like a great film, which, I'm a big film nerd, and I have kind of the same philosophy when I approach film. I'm not trying to waste my time watching garbage when I could watch something that could potentially shake me to the core and change me. I want to be changed by these things that I consume. I don't want to be placated. I don't want the media that I consume to be the equivalent of a parent jiggling their keys in front of their child to distract them. I want to be moved deeply. When I finish a book, I want to just sit there and stare off and be like, fuck. What did I just read? And the length of a novel as opposed to a film is an important aspect of this whole thing. It takes you hours. It takes you sometimes a week, 2 weeks. You have to set aside time to read a book. Quiet reading time to read a book. It's a big effort, especially now nobody has an attention span. It's actually incredibly difficult for the average person to read a book. So if you're going to go through that difficult task, why not read an excellent book, an important book, a powerful book? To read a great novel, especially a really long novel, which a lot of great novels are pretty long, not all of them. There's something transgressive about it in this hyper capitalist scroll TikTok attention span. It runs counter to how we have been conditioned by our devices these past 20 years. A great book gives you a degree of perspective on your reality. When you're so fully immersed in this author's reality as they present it, they wrap you up inside it, this cocoon. You are occupying their skull. Your horizon has merged with their horizon. So it really opens you up to the idea that your reality, your day-to-day lived reality, isn't so set in stone. To some degree, it loosens the hold that you have on your own reality. You lose your grip with reality, but in a good way. And a great novel expands your vocabulary, gives you hundreds more, thousands more colors to paint with, to paint your reality, to create your reality. You had a little box of crayons before, and then you read Gravity's Rainbow, and suddenly you have 1,000 crayons and some oil paints and charcoal pencils, and it expands the palette of your own reality. Regular novels and films and music or whatever, most of the time they're just like a shuffling of tropes. It's like, this is the good guy, this is the bad guy, this is the love interest, and this is the turnaround in the third act. It's very like Save the Cat type of bullshit. It's pressing the same Pavlovian buttons to get us salivating, but it's just pressing buttons in our brain that bring forth certain emotions, but it's ultimately meaningless. Whereas a really great work of literature or film or whatever, it's almost always new. There's something there. There's a connection to this deeper reality beneath this thin capitalist hellscape that we live in. There's a lack of manipulation and instead a connection to a deeper level of understanding the oneness of everything, not to get too hippie. And popular fiction tends to work in these kind of very predictable beginning, middle, end, whereas a great work of literature is oftentimes much more rhizomatic. It doesn't follow a clear structure. It's like it branches off in all these directions that are very much not what you would expect, which kind of prepares you for the actual reality that we live in, which is much less predictable. We rarely have a concrete beginning, middle, end in our lives. Regular books make visible what's already visible, and they say oftentimes what's already been said a million times before. Whereas a great work of literature makes the invisible visible. It makes new thoughts thinkable. A great book often resists being easily consumed. I read somewhere once that reading a dense, complex book actually rewires your brain and creates new synaptic connections in a way that reading an easy, predictable work of fiction doesn't. I may have made that up. I don't know. I may have dreamed that. That may not have happened. Also, in this kind of secular world that we live in, for the most part, for most people, because I would argue that capitalism is the actual religion that almost everyone is completely indoctrinated into. We are a godless society. We worship money and power and status and escapism and hustle and grind culture. But a great work of fiction, a great novel, can provide meaning in that void. You're putting yourself into the mind of someone who created beautiful meaning in this capitalist hellscape void that we find ourselves in. So again, for me, it always comes down to the intention. Why pick up a book at all? Especially when it's so difficult to pick up a book in this hyperreality that we find ourselves in. I mean hyperreality in the Baudrillard sense. So why pick up a book unless it has deep meaning and a very real potential to change you on a molecular level? Don't waste your time on shitty books. Life is too short. A great book is worth the effort because a great book can change you in a way that almost nothing else can other than lived experience. I have a big list on my phone at all times of books I'm currently reading, which means books I've started. Oftentimes I'll read like multiple books at once. Books I've started, books I want to start, and I just keep that list going all the time because life is so much richer when you are reading a good book. I don't mean like literally while you're reading the good book, but if you are in your day-to-day life, if you know that you have an excellent book to return to, you really want to finish that chapter, it makes your life infinitely better. A great book is worth seeking out. Look at the top 10 lists. Find book reviewers on YouTube that seem to share your same sensibilities. I guess that's all I have to say about it. I just got hyper caffeinated and decided to ramble for a little while, so that's that.